Good afternoon or good day, and welcome to Mindful Caregiver Conversations. My name is Donna Ray, and today I am here with a good friend, Jen Shea, to spend some time talking about caregiving and her story and her journey. So, thank you for being here, Jen, and welcome. So, would you
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So share with us who you are, what you do.
Hmm. Well, you've already said my name, so Jen Shea. I am a brand and business coach for women who are in business or starting business. Um, yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's what I do. I'm a business coach, and I do branding with clients, build websites, that sort of thing. So that's who I am, and that's what I do right now.
So have you been doing that for a while?
Years. Yeah. It's 10 years now. 10 years is when I started full time. Yeah. Like with my
And
own business.
and that's how we met.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
It was
remember the name,
original.
right, the name of the organization, but it was for virtual assistants. And
Yeah.
that's where we met. And then that's how we connected over branding and websites and like all the things that you do. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a few years back now. We've been friends for a long time now.
yeah, it's been a while. I can remember where I was working at the time that I met you. So, I mean, that was
Yeah.
easily 8 years ago. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. Yeah. I think so.
So, Jen, this conversation is about being a caregiver. So, the question is, who did you care for?
So I cared for my mom. Donna knows that it was a few years ago now. Mom passed away 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, at the beginning of COVID. But what happened was my I saw things changing in my mom really quickly. I was married and living on my own, um, but I saw that there was a lot going on, and my sister was living with her at the time. And when I would visit my mom, I would see that, I don't know, there was behavioral changes and cognitive changes and a lot of challenges and whatnot. And I began to get really concerned. And at a certain point, this happened back in 2015, 16. It started in 2015 that I became really aware of what was going on. And so I gave up my apartment and I moved in with my mom. At this point, my husband and I had separated. And so, yeah, so I had my own place, gave it up and moved in with my mom, and my sister was living there as well. And so it was my mom, and she was an elderly. This is 2016, so she was in her late 80s. And yeah, so that's who I was taking care of.
Yes, seeing changes in our loved ones and wanting to be more present for them and what's happening, because that's part of my story also. Noticing some, I'm going to say like personality changes. And so then that's what caught my
Mhm.
attention and started to watch a little bit more closely. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's usually the indicator when you start to see, well, them making decisions that don't make sense, or just for mom, there was um, obvious elder abuse going on and financial abuse going on, and the mother that I grew up with would never have let any of that happen. She would never not be in control of her finances, and it got to the point where she wasn't. And the mom that I knew would never have been complacent about things that she was didn't seem to even register with her, if that's makes any sense, and it worried me. So I moved in, and it was really obvious very quickly that there was a lot to be concerned about. And so I'll just share with you, try to make it brief, uh, how things kind of went along. I had started my own business years before, but when this happened, I sort of realized that I jumped into what ended up becoming almost a full-time job, um, which was extremely challenging, especially when you're the only income you have is, the work that you do. But a former employer had contacted me and asked me if I could give him some help for a few months. So that really, like, I don't know, stars aligned or something. And that helped me a great deal. It was part-time. I was able to get out of the house every day for 3 or 4 hours a day. Um, it gave me some income while I couldn't really focus on my own business, because as soon as I was back in the house, um, the moment I walked in, there was something going on and some challenge and something to worry about. And it just never ended. Even in the middle of the night, like mom started walking around the house in the middle of the night. And there was a lot of concern about danger for her because she lived in a townhouse where the bedrooms were upstairs. And I'd worry about her falling down the stairs, and she'd fall down sometimes because she had had a stroke in 2009. So her legs were her weakness. She was cognitively, prior to that, she seemed to be prior to me moving in, or prior to me noticing, I should say, she seemed to be okay. But the legs were a weakness for her since 2009. So it just never ended. Sometimes it was all night, sometimes there was only a couple of hours of sleep sometimes. And other times things were normal. It changed daily. You never knew what to expect when you came home, so to speak, right? When you wake up in the morning, you didn't know what to expect. So I was really worried. I knew something was going on, and I reached out. I'm in Canada, and in Ontario, where I live, we have, as you probably know, great social services. And in order to get somebody into a long-term care facility here, you have to go through your doctor. And I reached out to my mom's doctor. Um, and I just sort of said, like, I contacted them, left a message, and I said, is there any way I can get somebody to come out to the house? Because I'd asked my mom, when's the last time you went to the doctor and things like that. And she'd say, oh, I was there recently. And, that she was giving me answers like that. I saw him a few months ago. I reached out to my mom's doctor, and they said, well, your mom's not a patient here anymore. And I said, why? What do you mean? And they said, well, we haven't seen her since this is 2000 and the beginning of 2016, I believe, when this happened. And they said, we haven't seen her since 2013. And I was just like, what? Are you sure? And whatnot. And that kind of really put things in motion for me, because yeah, I mean, I knew that then that it was really clear there was something going on. And I said to the doctor's secretary, I said, well, how's she getting her medication? Because mom was on medication for thyroid, and because of her stroke that she'd had, there was medication for that and whatnot, blood pressure and all those things. And she said, well, we haven't had a prescription for your mom since 2014. The 6-month mark, they call in a prescriptions again. They do 6 months worth of prescriptions to the pharmacy. And I was at work when this happened, when I had this conversation. So I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to go home and check her prescription bottles, because I knew there were pill bottles and prescription bottles on the counter at home, and my sister was administering this medication to my mom. So I rushed home and found the pill bottles that, yes, indeed, nothing was marked after the 2014, but there were pills in the bottles. And that kind of was a breaking point for me in a lot of ways. I had to confront my sister as to what she was giving mom, and I won't get into all the details of the stories and that started to come up, but I was unable to convince my mom to go to the doctor. She said, I've been, and anyway, it was just, but this is the thing that happens. Mom had, in the end, it was diagnosed as vascular dementia. There's different kinds of dementia brought on by different things. Vascular is brought on by strokes and many strokes. So basically, because my mom wasn't getting her medication, she was having many strokes. And this is what was causing her cognitive decline, basically. Obviously, it's complicated. Everything's always complicated in these stories.
Yeah.
Everybody's, story isn't quite so black and white and straightforward, but that was it. Luckily, divine intervention, not long after that, Mom had another stroke, and it affected her eye. Her eye was crossed and she wasn't seeing. And I convinced her that I needed to take her to the hospital. She didn't want to go. She was paranoid and afraid of leaving her house because she had always said, I don't want to leave my house because if I do, they'll take it away from me. And she owned her own house. But anyways, I said to how I convinced my mom to go to the hospital and get checked out. I said to her, if I don't take you to the hospital, something's happened to you. And you can see that it has happened to you. If I don't take you, I can get charged with elder abuse. She was always throwing that term around, elder abuse and elder abuse. This is elder abuse. So I said, Mom, do you want me to get charged with elder abuse? I don't know that that would have ever happened, but that was, I could take her words and use that to sort of empower me getting her to the hospital. So I did. And it started a whole lot of, oh gosh, sorry, I can't remember the name of it. She went to geriatric assessment after that. It just started all these tests and whatnot. And at the end of all the tests, it was over a few weeks. She was diagnosed, with dementia and Alzheimer's. And they basically sat us down, my mom and I, and we met with the neurologist, and the neurologist looked at my mom. She had no bedside manner whatsoever, but she looked at my mom and she said, you need to be in a nursing home. And then she turned to me and she said, and you need to put her there. So I finally had what I needed in order to get Mom on the list for long-term care. So that was good. But as things progressed really quickly at that point, there was a lot of concern for me in the home with Mom for danger. She could fall down the stairs. There were other factors. There were other things going on that I won't get into right now. But once she was approved for long-term care, it's not quite that straightforward, but let's just say that. We had a social worker involved, and the social worker had to come over and do some assessments. But that was the first time in all of this journey that I felt like I had some support. One of the things I was really missing was I didn't have any family. My sister was sort of going through her own thing. So she was more of a challenge for me than she wasn't any help. She was a challenge. She was like, I had two people with challenges on my hands and I was alone, and I didn't have any friends or family who were able to come and physically be there for me. And that was really hard. I wish that was the one thing if I say anything of this journey, that was the one thing I really, really needed, but I didn't have. My daughter lived in another country, and she was the only person who I could really talk to about everything that was going on. She's always been really good support that way. I can tell her whatever it is. And without that, I don't know what I would have done. But anyway, we eventually, Mom went on an emergency list after a couple of incidences in the house, and she went into long-term care. If I can share with you, putting my mom into a long-term care home, making that decision to take her away from the home that she worked so hard for, taking her away from her pets that she loves so dearly, taking her away from the home and the things that were her safety net, her safe place, was the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. The hardest thing I've ever done. And eventually, when she did get into the nursing home, and I had to fight with my sister over that. When I did get her in there, there was a fear for a while, like, what if they send her home? Once they give her medication, maybe she'll be better and they'll send her home. And we had sort of all of these things going on. So it's like, did I make the right decision? And I knew I did. But there's just, you can't help but second guess yourself. And it was exhausting like that. I would say for a year and a half, I was completely exhausted by the situation and like going into it. And then after she was in the nursing home, there was the daily visits with her, but then I had to go through the whole going through her entire life, all of her things, and having
Mm.
to pack up and give away and donate. And, you know, you go through your childhood when you're doing that too, and all these memories and all that stuff, right? But I had to sell her house because that was an asset for her. And in order to pay for the long-term care home, I had to, the money had to come from somewhere, right? So
Mhm.
anyway, it was a challenge. And, it really was. It was really difficult. So it didn't end with her going into the nursing home. It ended most of like the really difficult part ended after I sold her home, and then I was burnt out for a few months and then started to rebuild my life after that.
And thank you for sharing that, Jen. There was a lot of details in there that being a caregiver, sometimes we just go into action mode and just start
Mm-hmm.
doing the next thing and not have too many conversations about it. You're just doing the next thing that feels the most right in that moment. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. And that really leads us into the question that I find myself always asking is how did you take care of yourself during that or after that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a great question. When I think about it, I'm not really sure all the time how I did it. Like you said, you do the next thing and the next thing, you're on autopilot or you're always reacting, right? It becomes a very reactive situation. You have to either think ahead of what's going to happen so that you can plan, which is what I was doing with contacting the doctor and everything. But then you're reacting to the moment, every moment with their personality. And in my case, with my sister. And um, I would say that for me, it would be even if just getting out of the house for a few minutes and sitting on the patio or, when I could find the time, sometimes I had to do it, just get out and go for walks and whatnot. And a friend had offered me a couple of overnights up at the cottage and just getting away. And I think that's probably it. I am very lucky in that I don't suffer myself with any kind of depression or anything like that. So, and I guess I really discovered in the last few years that I am a bit of a go-getter. Like I get things done. And I guess I always have, but I never really recognized that in myself. Um, so I think that luckily I'm really good at finding sort of peace in moments,
Mm.
just being able to do that. Cause I know that's not easy for everybody, but for me, it is something I can do, just sort of, you know, making sure that I was doing some meditating, if you will, and just um, turning it off for a bit, trying. Sometimes you can only turn it off for 5 minutes. And if that's all you can give yourself, that's all you can give yourself.
Absolutely. And so being part of this community of practitioners who may practice in a formal way or an informal way, that being
Yeah.
mindful is being present or being aware in the moment. And
Yeah.
so for like what I heard you say, Jen, like maybe that was more natural for you, right? Like you may have naturally known that I needed to take a break or go for a walk, right? Like it may not have really
Yeah.
thought about it so much, but just you recognize it in yourself that you needed to take a break. And so
Yeah.
all that looks different for each, right? When or
Mm.
how they do that. And part of having these conversations is just real highlighting that taking a break, taking a pause, resting, including yourself as a caregiver in all of what's happening is really what these conversations is wanting to champion for. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Yeah,
Oh, you're
absolutely.
welcome.
And I
Yeah,
and I
you're
want to
welcome.
tell you thank you again to Jen for making time to talk to us today. And so I know how to get in touch with you, but if you would share with our viewers how they can stay in touch.
Yeah. Well, the easiest way I suppose would be you can contact me through my website, which is easy. It's jenshay.ca. So my first name, last name.ca. And I know that Donna, you'll type it out for them. And on Instagram, I've got a couple of different Instagram handles. One is, what is it now? Gosh, Finding Moi. So Moi, MOI, is French for me. Yeah. So Finding Me, that's my personal one. And then I have my other one is Jen Shea Brand Clarity Coach. That's my business one. But if you're on Instagram, you can follow me there. Or if you want to reach out, I just want to say, Donna, to you, and well, you know this, but you're anybody who is watching this, that you're not alone. You may feel alone, but you know, if you want to talk to me, reach out to me. And I want to help people who are going through this, because I know how darn hard it is. It's just, yeah, it's the biggest challenge, because we change our relationship with the parent, the person who was the caregiver when we were little, right? The person who may have guided you or who may have challenged you, you know, the person who your relationship changes. It just does. And I know that sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. So reach out anytime.
Well, thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who is watching this video. Please like, subscribe, comment, and until our next conversation.